Hey there, welcome back to another episode of the Grandiose Project. My name is John Scane. Today I'm going to be showing you a couple of studies that I did of the Eastern Sierra and Mount Whitney area. Now, I've been working on these little sketches with this paper called Yupo paper, and you can see one of these right here behind my shoulder. I'm going to show you the first little sketch I did on this paper, and I did it with oil paint right on the paper, and it was just a quick little study that I wanted to try, and since then I've done several of them. So the other part of today's episode is that I'm showing you a painting that I finished maybe about a month or two ago, and it is of the Eastern Sierra and the Alabama hills. So I'm playing around with the idea of foreground, middle ground, and background, but also with the idea of sort of visual hierarchy of those elements. And how can I make them sort of relate to each other, but not have maybe a hierarchy that is expected. Okay, thanks for joining me, and I hope you enjoy the episode. So here's the painting I just finished, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I like a lot of the things that I was trying with it, and some of the things that happened that were unexpected, like this cloud, for instance. I had a totally different vision in my head when I was thinking of it and when I started it, but this is what ended up happening, and I really liked it, so I left it. Now, the mountain was also the same thing, where I didn't really think that I would paint it this way, but in the end, the painting sort of told me where it wanted to go. And especially these rocks, they didn't turn out at all how I kind of envisioned them, but that was a good thing because there was a lot of stuff that happened that I really liked, and that's a big part of the process for me, is the discovery part. I'm really about letting the painting tell me where it needs to go and just sort of orchestrating the idea of what I want to do, but not really trying to control it at all. If I did, then there's all these things that would happen that I would have to change, and I wouldn't be open to sort of letting them find a footing of their own in the painting, and then having it be something that I wasn't expecting and something that feels more fresh and is a surprise to me also. So it's kind of a balance between control and lack of control. Well, I shouldn't say lack of control, because that makes it sound like it's all luck, but it is a matter of being in tune with the painting so that I can let things happen when they need to, or if I need to fix them, fix them. Now, these other little pieces of paper here, I'm going to do some little studies with some of the leftover oil paint that I have on my palette, and I'm going to use up some of that stuff on those little studies. I've got some ideas that I've been playing around with in my sketchbook. So I've been doing these little rock studies, and I think I'm going to do a couple of them on those pieces of paper with this leftover oil paint from this last painting. I'm going to try out this new paper that I have, and I bought a couple little packs of it a while back, but I haven't even tried it yet. And it's called Yupo paper, and it's a polypropylene paper, so that you can use oil paint directly on it, from what I'm told. So I'm going to try it out and see how I like it. So what I'm going to do is just use a little bit of thinner with this old paint, and I'm going to thin this stuff down and just kind of see how it works with this paper. So right now I'm just going to block in some of these rock shapes, and then I'll go through and refine them. And I'm working from a little sketch back here that I did. Based on these rocks at the Alabama Hills. Let's see what will happen if I wipe this off. Huh. What if I tone the whole thing? Oh, yeah. So since this is like a plastic, it's kind of nice. It looks like it stains really well. So I'm just going to kind of fill in this little rectangle that I drew on it, and then I'll go back in and start putting back in those shapes. This value could just be the base for the whole thing, so. This is the first time I've used this paper, so it's, I gotta get used to it. I like it though. I like the color that that makes with this gray. Let's try a little blue on here and see what happens. Actually, I'm gonna make it kind of a blue-green. Seems like I need more thinner. The paint's a little bit dry. It's been sitting on this palette for probably a couple of weeks. Let me see if I just scrub this in, what happens. This is more of an experiment to see how this paper feels and holds paint. I can make marks on it. Save that dark value for the shadow in the rocks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a gray here that I can put down for a, I guess I could use that gray. I was going to put it down for the mid-tones. Add a little green to it. Make this kind of a greenish gray. I don't want to go down with my darkest darks yet because I can't really add to the shadows that way. Unless I got even darker, but I kind of want to keep this in sort of a mid-value range for the darks. I don't want it to get too dark. This paper is kind of weird. I'm not used to it, really. I like the mark making that it allows, but I have to get used to the feel of it, I think. That's one thing I'm not used to, that I'm used to doing with the canvases, is that I can, using a palette knife on this stuff is, it's kind of weird. Stick to the brush. Yeah, this almost feels more like using like charcoal. It's like a charcoal drawing, where I'm going to use this paper towel to kind of pull back off my light areas, like you would use an eraser with a charcoal drawing. I think this paper is pretty cool. I think it just is going to take me a little bit to get used to it, kind of see how to use it in a way that gives me the results that I want. So now I'm going to grab this dry, clean bristle brush and use that instead of my finger. I think that I can actually kind of pull off the paint with it and get marks that I like. So the light in my painting is coming from this direction, in case you couldn't tell. Now I'm going to go back in with paint and try to refine these little rocks. I think the point with this paper would be to really utilize the properties that it gives you when you're putting paint down and taking advantage of the surface and the way that the paint interacts with it. Because if you just cover it all up, then you may as well just use any paper or canvas. But I think it's important to kind of use the quality of the paper and how it reacts with the oil paint and utilize that as the technique that you use to lay down your marks. So in other words, kind of let the material dictate how you proceed with the image and the mark making, and let it inform the process. Now what I'm going to try to do is to put in the shadows, but I don't want to ruin the sort of quality that the marks are going down on this paper. And it seems like when I get thicker paint, it kind of ruins that thing that I'm liking about this. So I feel like I gotta be pretty careful about where to put in these shadows. And then how to control the brush. Right now I was trying to darken up the background a little bit on this side and try to get a little bit more contrast between this sort of reflected light and the background. But you really have to be careful with your brush marks with this paper because it shows all of them, so you don't want them to be, you really need them to sort of be orchestrated so that they, they move the viewer's eye all the way around and then get you to stop periodically where you want them to stop and then go back in and keep coming around so they can keep finding places within this little tiny painting that are interesting. And the best way to do that is with your brush marks, I think. I'll try something here with the palette knife. I can kind of put in some shadow area. Huh. I don't know. So now I've got sort of the form laid out with these shadows and the highlight and some midtones and some reflected light. But now I want to try something. And it may mess this whole thing up, but that is okay. I was going to try to put some of this pink on and see what happens. Here we go. Now, let me see what happens if I pull some off. Could work. All right, let's try the other rocks. Okay, now I think the best thing to do is to try to use this dry brush and make the marks and pull off what I want for the lights. I'm not working from a photograph or anything right now. I'm just working from a sketch that I made that was loosely based off of a photograph, so kind of far removed from what the actual photo might look like. But that's okay. I'm not trying to make a realistic representation. I mean, this will be a representation, but it's also stylized, I guess, in a way that is more about an expression and trying to do something with the paint that only the paint can do, that's separate from what the photograph can do. I think a lot of students and painters get stuck on, when they use a photograph as a reference, that they got to make it look like the photograph. But at least for me, photographs have always just been a starting point for me to play around with the form and the material of oil paint and let it do its own thing. I'm not really trying to make a representational piece of art. These paintings in this series have never been about replicating what I saw when I was there exactly. They're more about an idea of the place, and then how does oil paint and this material lend something to that that is different than the photographs. Now I'm going to go in with some little bit darker shadow. I kind of like this thing. It's a little weird to work with this paper. I have to get used to it, but yeah, overall, I like this little painting. I went back into this one a little bit since I filmed it and pulled off some of the background paint. It seems that if you get the paint too thick on the paper, it kind of defeats the purpose of using that paper, where you kind of want to let the light show through from the surface underneath. The interesting thing about it is that it allowed me to kind of have the same feeling that I got from the photograph that I took that was of this same rock formation. It's not entirely based on it, but it does have some similarities that I really like. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this, and it was pretty fun to do. So if you want to try it, it's called Yupo paper, and it's not super cheap, but you know, it's not that expensive. So anyways, let me know what you think. Well, I hope you liked that episode and enjoyed seeing those works being made. So if you liked this, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't. I'm really enjoying doing these little sketches on that Yupo paper, and I've got some other episodes that I'm going to show you where I just do some more of those little studies. So I hope you liked them, and if you did, you can hit the bell and you will be notified of new episodes. And please consider sharing this with your friends and people that you think might be interested in the Grandiose Project. Okay, till next time, bye.